Welcome to the Bill Sang Podcast. This is Bill Sang, and I am very happy to be back with you in this new year. As I explained in the last episode, had a lot of stuff going on that slowed me down from being able to do this sort of thing, and I'm very happy to be back with you all to be able to celebrate 2025 and all the changes that are going to be coming in this new year. Man, I feel like it's been forever. I started this back, I think, in 2020. And I believe it was just shortly after the death of Rush Limbaugh. In fact, that was a big inspiration for this whole podcast idea. And I'll probably talk more about that in the future, as that was something that was, I think, a pivotal moment in American history of all things, because there was a passing of a torch, really, of traditional media into the new media that we have now. And when I say new media, of course, I'm not talking about MSNBC and CNN or even Fox News for that matter, but now we've seen all these platforms arise on social media, places like YouTube, Rumble, and so forth, that all these podcasts spring up where you can choose whatever you want to listen to. Where in the past, if you want to listen to, say, Rush Limbaugh, you had to tune into a radio station at a certain time of the day, and thus you could be able to listen to Rush Limbaugh from 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock. If you miss it then, well, eventually other things developed to be able to help you to catch up on what you missed. But generally speaking, the people had to catch him from 12 to 3, or else you're going to end up missing him. So this is the Bill Sang Podcast. I'm looking very forward to being able to talk about these topics today that I've written down. As you may have noticed that the title of today's episode implies that Disney has not necessarily always been a good entity up until now. People are acting like it's a huge surprise that Disney all of a sudden is making all this outlandish media, all these crazy shows that are just really blasphemous in terms of how they view humanity and God and the gods, as I will put it. And it's as though this is some sort of a new concept, but it really isn't. It has been a concept that has existed for a very long time. It's just that now Disney has taken their mask off and they are just flaunting it. Now, I don't know anything about Walt Disney personally, so I haven't done my research there, but I'll just point to the movies. I mean, the old movies that they used to have. And it's not, maybe to say it has always been bad is not necessarily the right way to put it, or even bad is not necessarily the right way to put it even. I don't know. I'll let you decide on your own here shortly. But before we get to all that, I encountered something the other day as we transition from 2024 into 2025 that totally caught me off guard. I was sitting down to work on my sermon in Microsoft Word, and all of a sudden, a notification came up, said that your Microsoft Word subscription has expired. Okay, so I was like, well, what does that mean to me exactly right now? It was still opening up. The documents are still opening. But when I went to try to type, nothing happened. Nothing happened. And so I was like, okay, well, this is problematic, as I have lots of files saved in Microsoft Word, so we're going to have to renew it, I guess. But you know what I did? This is fascinating right here, because what I did, I took some of the files that I wanted to work on and I emailed them to myself. You see, a number of years ago, my grandpa Sang had passed away, and to my family, he left his computer. And on his computer, I don't know what version it is, was Microsoft Word. Okay, now listen up, because young people, you might not get this. I get this because I lived through this, and now I'm experiencing this transition that Microsoft Word was not always subscription based. Microsoft Word used to be you purchased it, you owned it, and until the new one came out, you had a version of Microsoft Word until you wanted to purchase the newer version. And so now I have Microsoft Word, an older version of it, which is essentially, for my purposes, the same as things that I need for the newer version, on my grandpa's computer that we have, and it's there. It's there indefinitely, so I can transfer my files. Man, I better not say this too loud. Microsoft might catch on and start encrypting certain ways, but I can transfer my files over to the Word program on my grandpa's computer, and I can still work on them. Isn't that crazy? I mean, it's just mind blowing to me that that's where we are today. I remember the days when we were saying that we all hate commercials, right? I never said that because I understood the purpose of them, but we are all saying, I hate commercials. And I wish that television did not have commercials. And then things started popping up. You started seeing places like YouTube. Netflix was a big one. That was gigantic. YouTube was home videos, basically. Netflix was a big time streaming service that essentially, I can't remember if at the beginning it didn't have commercials, but was a streaming service where you could watch movies online. And now you can watch TV shows online and so forth. But it was sort of the answer to having to buy cable. We all wanted to get unplugged from cable. And so they started inventing these streaming services. I'm going to take you on another little tangent here because this relates directly to me and my experience and is emblematic of the whole problem of streaming platforms. Namely that years and years back, decades ago, I have been a Godzilla fan for a very long time. Very long time. As long as I can remember, I've been a Godzilla fan. And early on, my family had, and like when I was a kid, my family had some old VHS tapes of Godzilla that we would watch from time to time. Had to wait a while for new ones to come out though, because Godzilla's made in Japan, we're in America, all sorts of copyright nonsense and distributor rights, yada, yada, yada. So for quite a while, when in the 90s, the newer Godzilla movies at the time were coming out in Japan, it was almost impossible to find them here in the United States of America until DVDs started to become more popular. And then Godzilla came out, the first American Godzilla movie came out in 1998. And all of a sudden, there was just an explosion of Godzilla media available. All the old movies were on DVD, on the shelves of the stores. You could purchase them at will. In fact, I was so overwhelmed with all the versions of them, I started to get sick of these new versions that are being released on the DVD because the dubbing was weird and all sorts of stuff like that, okay? But it was easy to find them. It was very easy to find them. And again, like I said, almost to an annoying degree because it was so hard to find them before. But now, 2024, here we are. Streaming services should be easy to find anything, anywhere, right? Wrong. It is just about as hard, if not harder. And maybe I'm just ignorant to find these movies now for casual viewing than what it was back then. Not necessarily if you're finding them on DVD. It's getting harder to find them on DVD now because now DVDs are starting to phase out. So it's starting to get harder and harder to find them on DVD. But what's going on now? Well, now, if you want, here's another example. It used to be you could find all the oldest Godzilla movies, like all the first series of Godzilla movies on YouTube for free. You just watch them, pull them up, watch them, no problem. And then what happened, turn of the new year, or maybe just a little bit before, now they're all gone. And I went searching for them. And when I found them, I was very disappointed. It says, hey, you can now watch Godzilla on Max. Max? So you're telling me that if I want to watch these old Godzilla movies on a streaming service, I have to subscribe to Max. I can't even download it off of Amazon Prime and just watch it off of there for purchase price. I have to download it. Well, not download it. I have to purchase a Max subscription to be able to watch these on a streaming service. Now, granted, there are other streaming services out there. Pluto has at least a number of the Godzilla movies for free, but again, that is pain in the rear service to have to operate. Unfortunately, but still, they're available there. But now, essentially, if you want to watch, and this isn't just Godzilla movies, I'm just using that as an example, any movie, distributor rights, and they become so exclusive now. It used to be that when a VHS or DVD or Blu-ray, what have you, was released, there'd be an advertisement saying you can own your very own copy of, I don't know, James Bond, of Mickey Mouse, of Space Jam, of any movie you can think of. It's now available for you to own. So it was something that you as a consumer could be happy about. Well, now the streaming services are the ones that are happy when they acquire the rights to something. So that what they end up doing is they say, hey, we now have the James Bond movies. We now have Blue's Clues. We now have, again, whatever it is, whatever movie or series it is that you like, we now have that, and you can subscribe to us. Not you can own your very own copy, but now you can subscribe to our services. So it's not yours. It's not yours. It's theirs, and they are simply allowing you to be able to access their platform. Totally different. And with where the world is going, and I'm not going to get into this being like an end of the world sort of thing or anything along those sorts of lines, but think about it. It's a shift in mentality in our country, globally, and I think there's a lot of pushback, by the way, as people are now saying, hey, we cut our cables because we don't want commercials, and now all the streaming platforms have commercials on them, and we're paying just as much, if not more, because now you can't just have all these different television networks on one cable subscription. Now you have to subscribe to Paramount and Netflix and Max and Stars and all these other, Disney Plus, all these other networks in order to watch whatever. And you can't just, with television, yes, it's streamlined. It's something that they control what you're watching exactly. But on the same token, at least it's there, and at least there's variety, and at least what you want to watch will eventually be on some channel, and you'll have access through one subscription. Well, now, for instance, Godzilla Legacy of Monsters. It is on Apple TV. I don't want to subscribe to Apple TV. The other Godzilla movies are on Max. I don't want to subscribe to Max. Okay, I just don't want to subscribe to either one of those services. So this is really bringing a huge shift in how it is we are consuming media, because now we have to think, what do I value so much that I want to purchase a subscription? Well, you know what I'm noticing? I notice myself wanting to see more, say, on PureFlix, say more on Babylon Bee, say more on Angel Studios, and so forth. We just renewed our Discovery Plus subscription because of all the documentaries and stuff. We don't want all, and yes, there's garbage on Discovery Plus, by the way, but we don't want all of the garbage on these other stations. We want good entertainment. My family and I, we want good entertainment that is going to be edifying. And yes, I do, like silly movies and stuff like that with explode. One of my favorite movies for a long time was The Matrix. Another one of my favorites was Batman. Dark Knight. The Dark Knight was one of my favorite movies as well. So yeah, I do like gratuitously fun movies, but I think that those also have lessons and have philosophical and theological implications to them as well. And so does Godzilla. I'll make that argument all day long, but I'm not here to talk about that. I'm actually just making the point. But we don't want to subscribe to all the garbage. We want to watch what we want to watch when we want to watch it. And so, all these other streaming services, I don't know what's going to happen to them in the future. They definitely are phasing out cable by and large, but it sounds like people are starting to clamor and demand that we get cable back. And then they'll go back to saying, hey, we hate all these stupid commercials. Well, brings me to Disney. Disney. For a long time, if you walked into a Christian's home, you could walk in and you would see Disney movies on their shelves. And, Snow White, Cinderella, some of the classics I'm naming off here, Bambi. And today we see a huge pushback in Disney entertainment. In fact, we've even had statements from high-ranking executives saying that, hey, we aren't going to be shy anymore. We are not going to secretly put out manipulative media anymore. We are no longer going to hide our agenda to push a sexual agenda, to push a godless agenda, to push an agenda that will shape the way that your children see America, see the economy, see race, see racial relations, see human relations, all these things. They are not going to be shy about that stuff anymore. And that's not good. And we go back to saying, well, I wish that Disney was the way that it used to be. Might I suggest that Disney never really was as wholesome as what we give it credit for. Fairly wholesome, I'll give it that much, but never really as wholesome as what we give it credit for. Maybe in its earliest days, I don't know. Well, when I think back to some of the movies that I grew up with, take The Little Mermaid, for instance, a movie that very clearly teaches that this naive girl's dreams are much wiser and better than her wise father's instruction. Granted, yeah, he may have been a little bit uptight. Granted, he may have been a little bit stringent, but nonetheless, watching out for the welfare of his family. Or take my favorite Disney movie, Aladdin. I know I say it's my favorite Disney movie, but I'm about to rip into it. Where it follows the story of this young man who finds a magical lamp to transform him into a prince, not really a prince, but essentially give him the appearance of a prince so that he can marry this princess, Jasmine. And Aladdin, the main character, the one who turns into a prince, spends the movie lying to her about everything that he is. And Jasmine's father counseling her to be wise with who she marries and to think about the future and all these things. And she just blows him off and ends up marrying this man who lied to her for their entire relationship to make her think that he's something that he's actually not. Convinces her to buy into that. And he's the good guy. Beauty and the Beast. He kidnaps Belle. And ultimately, Gaston, arrogant, narcissistic, all that stuff, goes to rescue her, ends up dying, and he's considered the bad guy, even though he wanted to liberate her from this horrible beast that never wanted her to ever see her father again. Okay, I mean, these are terrible, terrible messages. Subtleties meant to confuse the viewers. I remember it confused me when I was watching Beauty and the Beast and think like, wait, the Beast is a bad guy? But then you learn, no, he's not really a bad guy. Well, no, he was a bad guy. And yes, he transforms. There's an arc of transformation inside of the story, but still, I would argue that we're still learning bad lessons, that he never recanted from his vow, never let her see her father again. Not, at least not that I can recall. Maybe at some point she did. I can't remember. It's been a long time since I've seen the movie. But to me, the most glaring example of this, and it goes over everyone's head, is Toy Story. The original Toy Story. Now, you probably think I'm crazy for even bringing that up, but the original Toy Story is a parable of nihilism. Now, mind you, ultimately, the toys find their purpose, so to speak, in being able to bring joy to this boy. But I remember the scene where Woody's talking to Buzz Lightyear, and he's convincing him that he is just a toy. That's it. Nothing special about him. And Buzz Lightyear goes up the stairs because he wants to prove that he is more than just a toy. And he tries to fly, and this sad music, this somber music is playing. And when he tries to fly, he falls, he breaks himself, and then he realizes Woody was right. I am nothing special. I am just a toy. And mind you, there's a grounding element to that. I get it. We don't, a long time ago, people were watching Superman thinking that they could fly. And that was very damaging because people were like, hey, kids were like, hey, if I put on this cape, if I put on this towel around my back and jump off the roof, I should be able to fly just like Superman. And they got hurt. Okay, so there is a grounding element to it. We don't want kids thinking they can fly when they cannot fly. On the same token, do we not want our children to think that they can accomplish great things? Do we not want our children to know that all life is valuable, is precious, that their life is valuable and precious? And even though they might not be some sort of a world changer per se, you know what? Being able to live the life of a normal human being, raising a family, or being a decent human being, honoring God, well, that makes you special. That's something that's good. That's something that we should all be able to cherish. The Lion King. Fascinating thing about The Lion King, I remember how it was advertised. And part of this is marketing, by the way. They use marketing to kind of manipulate the way you think. I always thought that Timon and Pumbaa were going to be these great heroic figures. Actually, Timon and Pumbaa, they're actually horrible characters. They were so irresponsible, and they never really repent of their ways. They continue to be these lazy, slobbish sort of characters that are glorified in the movie. And I remember watching it the first few times thinking, am I supposed to look up to these guys? Hakuna Matata, that was their song. And when you hear it, you think, this is a fun song. This sounds like a good philosophy on life. But if you think about it, it is a horrible philosophy on life. It's a terrible philosophy on life. And again, in fairness, the movie kind of contrasts it with the goal of the movie, of the main character, to show, I don't even know what exactly they're trying to accomplish. It is more or less Simba's way of putting his past behind him so that he can move forward. But on the same token, they never really dispel the idea of Hakuna Matata, no worries. Mind you, yes, we shouldn't worry, we shouldn't be anxious for anything, so on and so forth, but we shouldn't make that our life's philosophy. And they never really make it clear that, is this a good way to live, or is this a bad way to live, or is it just a way to live? And I think that, if anything, it's probably a way to live that they're promoting and saying that it's no worse than any other way. So lots of relativism involved in that. In fact, you get that through the circle of life message and all that. Even though I love The Lion King as well, by the way. I love The Lion King and some of the other messaging inside of it. I think it's a great, great movie nonetheless. But there still is some, I think, some dangerous potential messaging inside of that. What other movies can I ruin for you? I'm trying to think of other ones that I could point to and be like, yeah, this wasn't necessarily the best messaging. Nonetheless, what I think is important to understand about a lot of Disney's philosophy, I remember I was talking to a friend years and years back named Adam, and he pointed out to me that Mary Poppins, the original books, were actually a little bit darker than what the movie was very lighthearted, Mary Poppins. But Mary Poppins as a character was actually supposed to be someone who taught kids about death. Okay, and Disney wanted to acquire the rights to make a movie about that. Think about that. Mind you, they made it lighthearted and all of that, but essentially, the woman, the Mary Poppins character, was supposed to teach children about that one day they are going to die. One day their parents are going to die. We see that constant in Disney movies. Probably the most infamous of these, if not The Lion King, it would be Bambi. Who actually likes Bambi? I mean, yes, I get it. There is a transformative message about it, that once Bambi was a child, and then he has become an adult, a man, so to speak, but buck, whatever. There's a transformative message, but why do you have to market that? See, that's the thing. Why do you market that to children? We know not to market stuff like South Park and Family Guy and The Simpsons and so forth to children, and yet these movies were marketed to children with very, very dark messages. And this is just the start. I mean, I can go on and on. On top of that, like, I always wondered, okay, why does Disney promote things like Pocahontas, like these spiritualities that are not the true God? They always promote these pagan spiritualities. Pocahontas, nature worship. Then you have Hercules, the Greek and Roman pantheon gods is what were promoted inside of those. And I know that they're making light of them, but on the same token, they make movies like that, and yet not a movie to honor Jesus. Now, mind you, I know that people would have a problem with that. Some people don't think that we should portray Jesus in a cinematic fashion. But you know what? To tell the truth, I'm glad that they didn't, because they would probably warp him, make him something that he's not, and so forth. So yeah, I think that, having said all that, this is just another one of those things where we have to reconsider our viewing habits and our media choices, because there really has been a media revolution that has taken place, where now we have to start considering, okay, do I want to subscribe to something like Disney Plus or something like Angel Studios? And by the way, speaking about Jesus and the media, The Chosen, and I think it's called what? It's Come and See app, I think it is. Either way, you can look up The Chosen, and that is a great, great story about the life of Jesus. I argue with anybody that says that. I don't really like to argue. If somebody wants to say it's not biblical, okay, whatever. They put stuff in there that it's not inside the Bible, but gives you context. As an artist, I don't have a problem with that so much, as long as they are not misrepresenting Jesus as a character inside of the movie, as it relates to the scriptures. But again, there's our anyway. The Chosen, great TV series. I see they're coming out with a, not Angel Studios, or not Bread and Loaf Studios, I think it is now. There's another studio that's coming out with a Jesus cartoon as well. Not that we just want Jesus cartoons, but again, Angel Studios, PureFlix, Come and See, Babylon Bee, The Daily Wire. You have all these outlets now that you can subscribe to that give you good media. And I'll throw Fox in there. That Fox Nation is starting to pick up on some shows as well. But what I'd like to see in a resurgence is of traditional media, in terms of DVDs and VHS and things that you could actually purchase and own, so that one day I'm not watching a streaming service and the show that I love or the movie that I love is gone from there, and I have to subscribe somewhere else just for that show or movie. Don't want to do that. Can't say I won't do it, but I really don't want to ever have to go down that route and support godless pagan media. This is the Bill Singh Podcast. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. Be blessed.
Black Swan Blues, take me home, 'cause I